Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Appelboom Bites podcast. Today is episode number 21, and it's a very special episode. First of all, because this is the last episode for now with Dr. SBREBrown. Stephen, welcome to the show. How are you?
Yes. Well, very sad now. I mean, I was doing pretty well, but then you pointed out it was the last show I'd be on, so I'm close. I'm close to bursting out in tears. But I mean, beyond that, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I explained earlier that we have already moved, or we have ended daylight saving time. So that was last night. So everything is different now. It's brighter than it should be, and all kinds of things are weird. But beyond that, everything is great.
So now you're in summertime with snow. That's fun.
In the summertime when the weather is high. That's right.
That's great. That's great. All right. We go in summertime in about 2 weeks, and we will do that together with Robert Jan. Robert Jan, welcome to the show.
Thank
how
you.
are you doing?
I'm very well. Thank you. It's an honor for me to be on the show with you guys. I'm a watch guy. I have a few pens, but I follow both of you. So I'm very happy to be on this show. So thank you.
Yeah, because you're not really a familiar face in the pen community,
No.
but in the watch community, you are like the guy. Because you're the owner of Fratello Watches. It's an online watch magazine, and I just checked out the Instagram, and it says watches, real people, and honest opinions. So with
Yes.
Steven on the show, you're really in the right place.
Yeah, I think we try to be the Stephen of the watches.
Oh,
And
nice.
it's not always easy. It's for us, the online magazine runs since 2004. And for me, it started a bit as a hobby project. And at some point, I could make it my full-time job. So I quit my job at this boring bank that I worked for till 2012. And then for me, it was time to go full on watches. And so Fratello Watches exists nearly 19 years. We are with a team of around 20 people.
Wow.
I'm the founder and the co-owner. Meanwhile, we have another shareholder on board, and I do it with a companion. And we are located in The Hague in a nice office. And there we are with 10, 11 people. And then we have the same number, more or less, in freelancers all over the world, including in Japan. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Really all over the world. And it's quite fun because this is the first Appelboom podcast. It's completely Dutch because I'm from the Netherlands. Robert Jan is from the Netherlands. And Steven can also speak a little bit Dutch. So we might speak a little bit Dutch during the show, but it's fun. I think I will arrange some subtitles for you guys if we do. Or not.
We can talk freely about stroopwafels.
Yeah.
Yes, that's no problem. No problem. But before we start this show, does everybody has his cheese ready, and all these other Dutch things? We do the pen check. And Steven, would you like to start with your final pen check for the Appelboom Bites podcast?
The pen check. Yes, I can indeed. I have with me the SBREBrown pen. Oh, yes, I know.
Wow.
After a 2-year wait, which felt like about, I don't know, close to 700 days or something, we have this beautiful pen. Look at it. Look at it. It's beautiful. It's, at least I think so. And if you don't think so, there's clearly something wrong with you. But it's, no, I'm just joking. It's a wonderful pen. I think it was made by Leonardo. There are 2 versions, and I realize I left the smaller one in the other room, but that's okay. A regular size, a grande size. These will be for sale very quickly, not through me. So do not contact me if you want a pen. I cannot help you, but Joost can. And after the show, he's going to get a lot of emails. So just send him more emails just to deal with all the emails. I think it's lovely. It has my logo on it. Let me just quickly clip my little device on so I can actually show you a little bit of this. Look at that. Look at that. It has the SBREBrown logo. Now, the problem of having this logo, as we know, is that you don't know what's inside, because when I use it as a thumbnail, people can't figure out what the video is about. So if you have this on the cap, you don't know what's inside, but I can promise you it's just a nib. See? It's nothing to be afraid of. That was my pen. And it was a dramatization of the whole process, but yes.
I love it. I love it. Your video about the two pens will be live around now, right?
Yes, it is. It is indeed
Yes?
live,
Okay.
which is very confusing because as we
Yeah,
speak, we live in the future, but it is live now, even though it is being rendered on my computer as we speak. But it is live now at the same time.
that's what we hope. All right. Thank you so much, Stephen. Robert Jan, what is your pen that you took with you today?
Well, I took all my pens because I needed to really give it a proper thought. And I came up with this one, which is very special to me. It's you probably know it better than I do, actually. So forgive me if I say things wrong. It's a Stipula Etruria limited edition. It was 991 pieces. I don't know the year exactly, but I do know that I got it in 2002 from my mother as a birthday gift for my 25th birthday. I went with her to a famous pen shop here in The Hague. Not sure if I can mention any other names,
Of
but
course, there's no problem at all.
it's very famous. And there was the Mr. Rutte, no, Mr. Paul Rutte.
Paul, yes, that's correct.
Yeah. I think he still works there. I saw him not too long ago.
He
Officially, I think he's
retired
retired.
last year, actually. He retired last year.
Yeah, but I think he's not really retired. So
Oh, he's still around there. Okay, that's great.
it's celluloid, as far as I know, and it doesn't have this system where you can ink it up with a filling system. It has a cartridge. I don't use it that much, I have to say. I'm too afraid of damaging it because it's very precious to me as it was a gift. I think the hardware is also sterling silver. And I also don't know if the company still exists, to be honest.
It still
Stipula.
exists, yes.
Okay.
Yes, it still exists.
You don't see them
we
that
don't,
often anymore.
no, we don't sell it. It was different in the past because then there was a distributor in the Netherlands of the brand. And now it's not anymore, so it's more complicated. But maybe in the future we might add the brand to our collection as well. But for now, that's not something for the near future, but in the long-term future.
Yeah. Okay. So it's. I think it's a beautiful pen, but it's also a pen I rarely write with. So for my daily writers are always different. I have a few favorites that I bring to the office here, and that I then use. But this is close to the heart. That's most important.
Yeah, really. It's a beautiful piece. Congratulations on that, Robert. Let's go to my pen check. I have here also a Leonardo, and it's the Aloha. So Stephen is already in summertime. For us, it takes 2 more weeks before we're in summertime. And the Aloha pen, it reminds me a little bit of summer. So hopefully that speeds up the time a little bit. It has some beautiful colors on it for the people that are listening to the show. Some dark blues, turquoise, and light blue. It's really, really, really beautiful. It is a silver colored trim, and I have a medium nib on this with the new Leonardo logo, or the new Leonardo nibs. So it's wonderful. Enough Leonardo pens for now. Let's talk about some other things. Because, Robert Jan, we have a question for you from our previous guest, which was Sarge Minjas. If you haven't seen that episode yet, make sure to watch it right now. He had a really interesting question for you, because his question was, do you like flexible nibs?
I don't think I have a flexible nib.
Ah, okay. Yeah, that makes it difficult if you to
I
come up
do
with
have,
an opinion on it.
yes, I do have nibs that feel very soft. So I have, for example, an old. I have it here, I think. Not sure if that's super. I have, for example, very old, and now my fingers are under the ink, but I think that's something
That's common.
common for you guys. I have a Pelican 140 from my grandfather, which is also very dear to me. He passed away in 2011, and I inherited his pen and his watch. And that also made me buy more Pelicans, and I have a soft focus for Pelican pens. But this nib feels very soft, and I don't know if that's the same as a flexible nib, but I prefer that they're a little bit more stug, a bit more stiff. For me, that writes a little bit, easier, I feel, for the things
Yeah.
that I do. I have the
Yeah.
tendency to press a little bit too hard, and then I don't think a soft nib or flexible nib is very suitable.
No. Do you use a flex nib often, Steven?
Oh, I love flex nibs. No, I have tried many times, and man's got to know his limitations. I know that I am not suited for flex nibs. I can't use them well. My handwriting does not get any prettier when I use them. It's just not for me. I very much admire people who have the fine motor skill that I sorely lack, and who are able to use flex nibs. But it's not for me, which is a shame because it does look pretty. But no.
I have a bit of a noob question then. What's the advantage of a flex nib?
I think that it allows you to do sort of copper plate type writing, which you really do with a dip nib, but you get the sort of zwelschrift in Dutch. So you have the wide broad strokes and then thin upstrokes and wide broad strokes, and that looks very, very pretty. But what I find a lot of people kind of overlook is that to be able to do that, you need to practice. So I get a lot of questions from people who say, well, I bought a flex nib. My handwriting is not more beautiful than it used to be. What's wrong with the pen? Nothing. But there are some things wrong with you. For example, you did not practice, right? And like with everything, it's a skill. It's a very difficult thing to write that way. And I deeply admire people who can. But that's the advantage, that you have that nice flair.
Do you need to write slower for a flex nib?
I think a little slower often, and what is very difficult is that the types of dip nibs they use have kind of an angle, so it's easier to do that type of writing, because with a fountain pen, to really do that, you would kind of have to put your pen at an odd angle to be able to line up with the paper that way. So I think that's a bit slower. And a lot.
And it's also about the pressure. It's also about the pressure, because we sold a lot of flex dip, of course, and sometimes we get them back with customers. They say, "Yeah, it doesn't work for me." Then I always ask them, "Can you send me a video of how you write with the pen?" And you can see when people are putting a lot of pressure on it, because then this is what you see. They are really putting pressure on their pen and putting it on the paper. And then if you have a lot of pressure, there's not a lot of flex in it. So you really need to just keep the pen on the paper. And if you want to make it flex, put pressure on it at that time, but not all the time, because then nothing is happening. So it's a lot of practicing. That's true. Robert John.
Yes.
You are really into the watch community. You see a lot of watches, but you also have a beautiful collection in writing instruments. What do you think is the main difference, besides that one can write and one cannot, between those two beautiful items?
Well, let me first tell you that what I see, I think already the difference is, if you like beautiful watches, like mechanical watches. I see you have one on your wrist, Joost, and for Stephen, I don't know. If you are into like
Seiko.
Seiko is a
but it's still
pretty good
Port
brand.
Seiko.
Yeah, okay. If you're into mechanical watches or luxury watches, I also believe that you have a soft spot for fountain pens, or for classic cars, or for race cars, or for a hi-fi. I think you are appreciating the finer things of life. What I noticed on the other side, if you like fountain pens, and this is a very broad thing that can be from Lamy Safaris, I guess, to Montegrappas with a 20K price tag, it's not a given that you are interested in watches. So there, I already feel there's a little difference in type of person, I would say. To answer your question, what was your question again?
What do you think is the main difference between those luxury products?
I think the main difference is often, and I don't want to say that applies to everyone, but in watches still, unfortunately, most people who buy watches, it's still a status symbol.
Mm-hmm.
You also buy it to get the acknowledgement from other people.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I have to say, because I don't think that can be a valid reason for someone. It's just not the reason that I like. And I think for pens, although perhaps there are people who buy a 149 to show off during board meetings, but I think that there are 5 other people during that board meeting as well with a 149.
Yeah.
I think more often with fountain pens, you really pick the pen that suits you best.
Mm-hmm.
And there I would wish that people who are into watches, they would leave the Rolexes and the Audemars Piguet and the Pateks alone and really try to buy a watch that suits their personality. Try to buy from a brand that suits their personality and their own way of thinking and how they look at things in the world. I think that would make the watch community a better place. And I think the pen community is already in that better place. If I look at the watch community or watch industry or compared to the pen industry, I do feel that if I look at the websites from pen manufacturers, let's say Pelican, I don't want to insult any pen brand, but that looks like the watch brands from 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It looks awful. And I feel that a website like yours, Appelboom, for example, I think a lot of brands could take an example of what you are doing as a retailer. Because I feel that these pen brands, they just have a website that is made with front page 98 and it looks like crap. If you go to the Pelican website, you need to click like 5 times before you see a Souverain pen. They don't advertise at all that they are into to fine writing instruments, or how do you want to call it? I just call them pens. I think Montblanc is perhaps the only kind of exception there. And I also have to say, I like the website from Monte Grappa with the configurator. I think that looks nice. But also there, they are still not there yet. And there I feel that the watch industry or watch community is much more advanced. And I already feel that the Swiss watch industry is quite slow. But the pen industry seems to be even slower.
Yeah. No, it's quite funny because before the show and before you jumped in, I talked with Steven about internet like as an entire thing. We're going really fast with the internet actually because Steven remembered life before internet. And, that's a really long time ago. So you can imagine how old Steven is. But it's...
And he's younger than me, yeah.
He's not even that much older than I am. Yeah. So, but it's okay. I can make fun of Steven. But...
everybody does, don't worry.
Yeah, what I don't want to say. Oh, yeah, sorry. So the thing is, the e-commerce is changing all the time. For example, we are improving our website as we speak. Within a few weeks, we will have an entire new website. So it's changing all the time. And the Monte Grappa configurator, that's a great thing, what they made on their website. So you can really actually make like your pen how you want to have it. Yeah. And that's unique in the world of writing, because in the car industry, it's already a common thing for like 10, 20 years. Like you can make your car with air conditioning that you like, or with this button over there in that color and stuff like that. But for writing instruments, it was completely not done. You could just get, your Pelican Souverain green with a black cap, and that's about it. But the Souverain pens are also made with red striped barrels. Why can I not pick an M1000 with red striped barrels?
Yeah. That customization, that is something that's also a lot of watch brands are not a fan of that because it's a logistical nightmare. But what I see is in the end, it's a luxury product, right? And I think the difference between these products is the storytelling. At least that goes for watches. If we get press releases in from watch brands, if you would change the one brand for the other brand, they almost are all the same when it comes to specifications and so on. I think it's really about storytelling. And when I look at, and I think watch brands, they are onto it these days. But that changed the last 10, 15 years. But if I look at pen manufacturer websites, I feel it's very thin. And I think they could do much more. And if you look at Montblanc, they have their limited, they had the Ferrari, Enzo Ferrari limited edition and 80 days around the world. And they can do some proper storytelling. And I feel that's important for the client because they need to be touched. It's an emotional product in the end. You want to be touched by a certain product. And I feel that's where the watch brands, I have quite an advantage over the pen brands. There I feel that pen brands could do a little bit better. I'm a big fan of this. I think you have them as well, Joost. These Otto Hood pens.
Yes,
The
they're doing
Design
a
8. When like a year ago, or 1.5 years ago, when I went to their website, I couldn't even find this pen while they had it in production. And there I feel, come on, you have to do better. You have to be more out there.
They just launched a new website actually. I think 2-3 weeks ago, something like that.
Yeah.
You have to look it up. It's a really great website now.
Yeah. Well, it was about time then. But I feel that's that difference that I think watch brands really see themselves as a luxury product and also do storytelling. And I think pen brands they are still in that little niche. And it also shows if you look in the Dutch landscape, there are again, no disrespect there, but there are 2 shops in the Netherlands. It's yours and the one in The Hague.
There are a few more, but yes.
Yeah, there are a few more, but these are the biggest ones. And then it becomes even more sad if I look at Germany, it's an incredibly big country. There's nothing. I tried to buy an M1000 when I was in Munich. I could not find one. I could not find a pen shop other than an in-store Montblanc shop in the Oberpollinger's department store. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. No, that's really something which is really sad. That you cannot buy pens locally anymore. So that's really something that.
And I think another difference, perhaps, not stepping on toes again, is that I feel that the watch community, the watch world, I think there are boys and girls in their early 20s that are already very interested in watches. And often they start with a brand. Let's say they are interested in Rolex or Cartier watches. But once they are interested, you can get them into something else as well. And I feel that the pen community, I think the average age is much higher than in the watch community. I was at the Dutch pen show last year, and I felt quite young.
Well, that is a good thing. That's a good thing. It's quite funny because I can see in the Google Analytics, things like that, and in the social media analytics, that the average age is getting lower and lower. So that's a positive thing for the entire pen community. And hopefully we will see also all those young people on the pen shows, because then you feel old again. And
very good.
Then there's future. Then there's future for the pen community.
Yeah, and I do have to say that during that pen show, and also in these online communities on Facebook, you have these fountain pen groups. I see a lot of women taking part of the pen show, but also in discussions online. And I think that's a very positive difference compared to the watch industry, which is really still a man's world.
Yeah, no, I think also the watch world is really masculine. On that side.
Yeah, they try to change it, but it's very difficult. And I also still believe that women often just buy different than men. And I think the watch brands and retailers are not ready for that.
How do you see this, Steven? Because you're really a watch guy as well, of course.
Oh, I am such a watch guy. No, and I really enjoyed this discussion, these observations, because I'm always a little hesitant and maybe a bit how do you put that? I'm always a little nervous, I think, to enter the watch world, sometimes because of pricing, which it has become clearer to me in the past years that a watch does not have a nice watch does not have to cost $20,000 or euros, whatever, which I think was a bit of my my fear, and I feel sometimes that there is and this is like the expression "not stepping on toes" has already been used, so I'll reiterate that. I feel sometimes that there is a strong level of opinion in the pen world for sure, but I always get the feeling that in the watch world that's worse, and that may not be the case. I'm not really well versed in the watch world, but I always hear if people have very strong opinions and well, this is right and that is wrong, and I think sometimes that can put people off. I once went to a large jeweler in The Hague that I shall not mention out of politeness, but I needed a battery for my watch, which again was just a quartz watch, and I walked inside and asked if they could help me out with replacing a battery in my watch, and they said, "Oh yes, there's no problem." What kind of watch is it? And I said, "Well, it's this watch, which was a Movado, which I don't think is a spectacular brand, right? But I mean, it's so I said, well, it's this Movado," and then the lady in the store said, "Ew, no, I'm sorry, we cannot replace that sort of battery in that type of watch, sir. No." And then I was more or less asked to leave. So
I know exactly which store that was.
yeah, it's somewhere in the back of a street, and you have to
Yes.
ring to get in. Yeah. So yeah, but so this I'm certainly not trying to be negative about the watch world. I think it's exciting, and I like looking at watches, but I've never really been a watch person. Anyway,
Yeah.
so that's kind of my immediate thoughts.
Yeah,
What?
I think you're quite spot on. Last year, perhaps you've noticed Swatch did a thing. They came with a Moon Swatch, which was inspired by Omega Speedmaster, very like a classic or iconic watch. And I don't use the term iconic lightly. And so Swatch made this Omega in their own bioceramic plastic kind of material that they always use, or almost always. And they got a lot of hate for that. And
Oh, wow.
while we just bring the news, we also got a lot of hate for that. And people are very opinionated. Last week there was another Moon Swatch with a different second hand. And then again, the whole circus started all over again. People are very opinionated. They feel that Swatch does a nasty thing to Omega because it dilutes the Omega brand. You have to know that Swatch and Omega and some other brands, they are all part of this big Swatch group company.
Mhm.
And so there are people that absolutely hate that watch, and there are people that absolutely love that watch. And it's like that you used to have with Xbox versus PlayStation, Windows versus Mac OS, and so on. You have those kind of discussions, Mercedes versus BMW.
Mhm.
And I think certain brands, they trigger this behavior. It's also with Rolex and Omega, they're always competing and battling. And you always have, if you post a Rolex on Facebook or Instagram, you'll immediately get people to say, "Oh, you can better buy an Omega for that money," and vice versa. It's always the same.
You
And
don't have that with writing brands, right, Stephen?
I don't know
No,
actually. If you
not at all. No, you never have these sorts of arguments. No. Note the sarcasm. Yeah.
Yeah, but sometimes I feel with pens, it's a little bit more intellectual, perhaps, that the arguments
Yeah.
during a discussion are a bit more. They are more cutting wood.
Yeah, and I also I will add to that, because I certainly I was really being sarcastic. I mean, certainly people have strong opinions in the pen world, but I have never really seen people get very worked up over something like, well, Mont Blanc is better than Pelican, and it has this that sort of. I don't think that happens, and I think the example you just gave of that Omega Swatch collaboration is a very eloquent one. Of that's kind of the feeling I got from the very, very limited experience that I've had with the watch world. So I think it is a bit more toned down.
I only see
in
strong
the pen
opinions in your comments under your videos.
Yeah, but the strong opinions that people have in my comments are always about me being wrong. I think that's the thing. It's not about the pen. It's always about me, that I am stupid, obnoxious, ugly, hideous. I speak too fast. I speak too slow. I speak too much. I don't speak enough. I don't.
Oh, but that makes all sense.
It's really. I like, though, that people take the time to review me, because it's a very meta sort of thing to review the reviewer. Anyway, I do think that's a little different in pens and watches. Yeah. I think that's a fair thing to say. Yeah.
Robert John, if you have to advise Steven on a watch, what would you advise him on? Like
Basically,
Steven
what I said earlier, I think you have to find a brand that suits you, that fits you as a person, and then I think in the end you have to buy what you like, and of course according to your budget as well. And you said, well, my watch is not that expensive, but you have to know that I think we get most traffic for Seiko watches. That community is so big on its own; it's like unbelievable. They also increase their prices, but under €1,000, that you have the most beautiful Seiko watches available. But I feel that you have to set a budget, and then you really have to search for something that you like, that speaks to you. It's very difficult because I get these questions daily from people that say, "Hey, my budget is, I don't know, 3,000 or 5,000 or 10,000 euros. What should I buy? Or what should I buy my boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever?" I can't even buy a watch for my wife. I bought my wife a number of watches that I thought, oh, she likes this Rolex Explorer, she has an Omega Speedmaster, and so on. And then at some point, she bought her own watch, and it was something I would never have bought for her. It's a beautiful watch, but I could not imagine that she would like this watch because she's quite sporty, and this is a very, very classic watch.
It's really personal.
So it's
really
very
personal. But I think it's the same with writing instruments. It's also really personal.
To advise someone. Yeah.
But come on, name dropping, Robert John. Say a name for Steven. A nice watch.
Omega Speedmaster, of course.
Yeah? Okay, wow.
That's the one to have.
Now you know what's your goal for this year.
I'll put it on the list. To contact Omega and say I was thinking of branching out into watch reviews. Send me as if that were to happen. But yeah, but that's interesting. It's interesting that you mentioned that because I get the same question a lot, but for pens, right? Like I have X budget. My favorite email ever was something like, "Can you recommend me 15 or 20 pens under $500 that I want to help, but I mean, how much time do you think I have?" But it's the same thing. Like I have this budget. What would you buy? Well, I can tell you what I buy, but that's probably not very helpful because it has to match you, your personality. Do you like classic? Do you like modern? Do you like, all the different things that would have their analogs in the watch world? It's very, very difficult to give advice.
Even the grip, I think, for a pen is very personal, right? So
yeah, there are a lot of personal things. But to help those people out, I have a few new items on our website.
This was a beautiful segue. That was one of the greatest things that ever was. Wonderful. Yeah.
New products.
I was really hoping for this kind of way. So the first one that I would like to mention is the new pen of Leonardo Officina Italiana. And they have once again collaborated with one of the most known and appreciated resin makers in the world, Jonathan Brooks of the Carolina Pen Company. And this is not the SBREBrown fountain pen, because that one I will mention later on. But this is the Supernova 2023. And it is called the Bohemian Twilight. And it's a spectacular mix of brown, black, and blue. The Supernova 2023 collection consists out of 199 numbered pens and is available with 4 different metal finishes: yellow gold, rose gold, silver, and ruthenium. So that's the first one that I would like to mention. The other one that I would like to mention is the new Scribo Piuma colors. There are 3 colors actually: the Agata, the Corniola, and the Amatista. Sorry, my Italian is not that good. They are inspired by 3 gemstones and of the same name, and they are made with a resin that reproduces the effect of the stone. So the name Agata derives from the Greek. Yeah, my Greek is also not that good. Agatas. Steven, how's your Greek?
It's been better, but I did take it in school for a year, so I got these.
Okay, then it's okay. Yeah. Then I will not ask you. The river where in ancient times many quantities of this stone were found and extracted. The meaning attributed to Agata is stone of magic that brings calm and peace. With its yellow gold finish, the new Piuma agata inspires us precisely this sense of inner well-being. The amethyst is a variety of quartz characterized by the presence of purple hues. The name amethyst comes from the Greek amethistos, which means not drunk. So that's quite funny. Scribo's Piuma Amethysta, with its golden finishes, is inspired by one of the most long-lived and precious stones, a symbol of the elixir of life. And the last color, the name carnelian, derives from the Latin carnis, which means flesh, and the stone is so named for its color. The Romans used carnelian to make stamps to imprint the wax seal on correspondence or other important documents, because hot wax does not stick to cornelian. The Piuma cornelia, characterized by platinum finishes, warms the heart and infuses optimism and fidelity. Last thing about this collection, only 290 pens of each colors will be made. And the last one that I would like to mention, which will be online as we speak now, you can order it. You can go to the appelboom.com website and order it. We do not have it in stock yet, but the delivery time is about 2 to 3 weeks, is the Leonardo SBRE Brown. Steven already mentioned it at the beginning of the show. It is there in 2 different models. We have the regular Momento Zero and we have the Momento Zero Grande 2.0 version. The 2.0 version has a gold nib on it. The regular Momento Zero has a steel nib on it, and you just have to have it because it will sell out like this. So just head over to the website, buy it, and love it because Steven's name is on it. And what else would you like, right? So
What more could you wish for?
enough about me. Yeah, Steven, before we're ending the show, what is your last question for Robert John?
Well, I was actually going to ask what was what's your best advice for a beginner, but that question has been already answered in a very nice and constructive way. So now I am, fortunately, this is not my first rodeo, and I have a backup question, and I hope that I'm using the terminology correctly. But what's your favorite complication on a watch?
A chronograph. In other words, a stopwatch. But I like a chronograph because unlike what many people think, it's one of the most difficult complications to develop by brands. So that's why you see a lot of brands, and that is then always also a question for me to you at some point later on. A lot of brands use third-party movements when it concerns chronographs. So you have third-party movement makers like ETA, part of Swatch Group. You have Celita, and you have Valjoux, that's also part of Swatch Group. And they make chronograph movements. There are more, but these make chronograph movements, and these are being used by a lot of different brands. Mm-hmm. And it shows that there are some watch brands that are here for like centuries that still don't make their own chronograph movements. So I think a chronograph is a very interesting complication, and it's also fun to play with. It's very useful to time your pizza, to time your travel, to time your writing, for example. It's something that you really use. There are other complications like a moon phase or perpetual calendar. That's all very nice and expensive. But yeah, I really don't need a perpetual calendar. It's just like more of a show-off thing to demonstrate what a watch brand can do, rather than a useful complication. Another complication that I like, the backup complication, is a GMT. So it gives an extra time zone. So if you're traveling to different time zones, it's very useful to track the time over there and at the same time see the time at home. So if you want to call your wife or your kids, that you know whether it's suitable or not. Not if you're in the UK, coming from the Netherlands, but if you're a few more hours
in Canada,
away,
for example, it would be nice.
Exactly. So that's I feel is a very useful complication. Yeah. Then I also have a question for you, Steven. Movements in-house or developed by third parties is a big thing in the watch community. So watch collectors, they prefer in-house produced movements. So Rolex produces everything in-house. They didn't do that forever, but since 2000, they produce every movement in-house. Seiko produces everything in-house. They even grow the quartz crystals themselves for the quartz movements. There are watch brands like Breitling, for example, that still uses movements made by others. IWC still uses movements from a third-party movement producer. So it's a hot topic in the watch community. So people prefer often brands that do everything in-house or as much as possible. I know that for pens, that not every pen manufacturer make their own nibs. And I never see discussion around that. While for watches, there's always discussion about movements and who made it. And if a watch brand is really transparent about it, yada, yada, yada. But for pens, it doesn't seem to be really an issue. Or perhaps I'm wrong, but that's my question to you.
I think it's a very interesting question, and thanks for answering mine too. I would also actually pick a chronograph. Look, I have one right here, so that was
exactly.
That's lovely. It's probably also the only complication I have in my watches because they're not that fancy. But having said that, I think you're the question of nibs is very interesting, and it does surface once in a while. And I got that question. Time flies, but it feels like about half a year ago or something. And it was the first time that I really started to think about it because someone framed it along the lines of basically what you said. So I don't have to reiterate that argument of, isn't it more desirable when a company makes everything in-house as opposed to just putting on a Bach nib or a Jovo nib? Because like you said, with complications in the pen world, there really only are a couple nib manufacturers that make nibs on a large scale if you don't have a company that makes the nibs in-house. And I'd never really given it any thought. But what you do see a lot now is companies that make, I think, beautiful pens, more and more colorful acrylics that are very swirly and attractive and nice. But 9 out of 10 times, if not 10 out of 10 times, they will have a Bach nib or a Jovo nib, and that's what you have, and there is nothing made in-house. I do think, for me, I think I'm fairly practical, and I don't really care as long as the nib writes well, but I certainly see the appeal of, say, an Aurora that actually makes the nib in-house and therefore has a nib that has just a different shape. That's not just another Bach nib or just another Jovo nib. They all have the same feeds. They all look exactly the same. And I do think that does add a nice touch. So I certainly see how for some people it would be more desirable. And I can really see that. So yeah, I think it's a really good question. I think it does evoke some debate in a lot of people. And I think some people are not really aware that so many nibs, including for bigger companies, are actually made by the same companies in Germany, and that's it too. So I think that's a very interesting question. What does Joost think about this? Because you sell all these pens, man. Like, does it matter to you?
The thing is, if you cannot make your own nibs, it might be better to buy them from somebody that actually can do it, because the most important thing about a fountain pen is that it writes. So if you cannot manage to get a nib that writes, buy it from somebody else to have at least a pen that writes. And I know for a fact that, of course, a lot of brands get their pens from Bock or Jowo, but they modify it still in-house. So the basis is made by Bock or Jowo, and then they do the fine-tuning in-house. So not every Jowo nib is the same as like multiple red. For example, Leonardo have nibs made by Jowo, but the nibs are fine-tuned a little bit in-house. Scribo, for example, they have the machines of their nibs. They're not in Bologna at the facilities of Scribo, but they are, I think, at Jowo, but I'm not sure. But at least they're at a nib manufacturer who actually have all the skills to do that, and they make with their machines the nibs. So it has a lot of different angles. But for Aurora, they make the nibs themselves. So that's something which is, of course, a huge, unique selling point of them. And yeah, I can imagine that people would love to have an Aurora with the entire pen made in Italy, which is, of course, quite unique. And yeah, it is a thing. It is a thing. People really come in the store and buy, for example, an Aurora or a Pelican because everything is made by that manufacturer and not bought by a third party. So yeah, that's happening.
Interesting. Thanks for answering. Yeah.
We're now almost ending the show, but before we do that, Robert Jan, you can come up with a beautiful, nice question for our next guest.
I have a
You
question.
don't know who's going to be the next guest, so it will be really fun.
I have a question. It's a question about pens, but it comes from a watch guy.
Mm-hmm.
In the watch world, the pre-owned business is incredibly huge. It's incredible. There are websites, you know them, like Chrono24. They have like 400,000 or 500,000 watches on display, basically on their website, from all sorts of dealers, private and professional. And most of them are pre-owned. So it's a huge business for billions every year. So if you buy a pre-owned watch, you have to have proper knowledge about this watch. You have to investigate, and then still it's not 100% guaranteed that what you receive is properly working and up to your expectations. I see the same with, I don't know how big the pre-owned market for pens is. I have been to the pen show once in Utrecht. But I'm wondering, because I'm struggling with it myself as well when I'm bidding on a pen on eBay or Katawiki or wherever. So my question to the next guest would be, do you buy pre-owned pens? And if not, why not? And if yes, what are your top 3 tips for buying a pen pre-owned?
That's a really good one. Do you buy pre-owned pens? If not, why not? But I know this guest. He has bought some pens, so I will ask the three tips to do so. To do that. I will tell who's going to be the next guest. It will be Fountain Pen Memes. He's really well known on Instagram with all his funny things. But it will not be with Steven as a co-host, unfortunately, because he will be replaced by our own nib specialist who is going to sit behind the screen this time. It's Annabelle Hiller. She also was a guest on one of our first show. So, but now she will be our co-host for the upcoming 5 weeks, and the first guest will be Fountain Pen Memes. Will be a lot of fun. Steven, I would like to thank you for these last few weeks that you spent some time with me together. I hope it was okay for you.
No, it was terrible. I hated it every second of it. No, it was lovely. It was lovely, Joost, and I appreciate you having me.
Robert Jan.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being a guest with us and tolerating Steven all the time with this wonderful conversation that we had.
I knew Steven virtually already, so I was prepared.
Yeah, luckily. Hopefully we see you another time as a guest on the show. It was really interesting to have this input from a different industry, because we're always focused, on our own pen industry with, really pen focus, but it's really fun to see different angles and have an honest opinion about, what's going on actually in the pen industry without this view. So thank you for that. And hopefully we see you another time as well.
Yeah, hopefully. I had a lot of fun. It's very nice to talk to pen people as a watch guy. And I have to say my love for pens has started a few years ago again. I bought my first pen, I think, 23 years ago, Pelican M200 with a gold nib. Also at Ackerman, they changed the nib for me for 50 guilders extra. So that was my first pen, and then I left it alone for a long time. And then since during COVID, actually, I picked it up again, and now I have 40 pens in front of me, and I came from 5. So yeah, that's fast. Yeah. Thank you. It's a rabbit hole for sure. But thanks to you guys, I'm learning a lot.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for watching the show on
Awesome.
our YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to do that. If you're listening to our show on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure to follow it on there as well, so you won't miss out on an episode. Next week, we have another co-host and a new guest. Bye-bye.